welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Modern Open in Cincinnati, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. Nick Miller alongside Team Lotus Box. Collins Mullen, how you doing?
Excellent, excellent.
Now, usually when I see you playing Modern, you're doing scape shift strategies or something here and there.
I've done a little bit of that, yeah, for
and
sure.
And then you did some brewing a couple weeks ago with the ridiculous Vengevine Vengeance deck.
Yep.
And you're on something different this week altogether. You've
Yep.
switched strategies 3 times, complete different directions each time.
I don't really know what I'm doing in Modern right now. I'm just kind of, playing some fun decks that I think could have potential to be busted. That's kind of like the approach that I've been taking to my deck selections over the, I've not been keeping it safe, and I've been leaning more towards playing something that's like a little more off the radar, but could potentially be just, the next best thing.
Yeah, and this deck is very interesting. We've got a 5-color Humans deck here.
Yeah.
We're calling it Humans. And you have not 1, but 2 cards from Ixalan making appearances here.
Yeah. The one card that I should mention first of all is Kite Sail Freebooter.
Yeah.
And that's the new card that came out in Ixalan that's kind of made this archetype a reality.
Human Pirate.
It's a human pirate, yeah. So it's a black 2-mana, 1/2. When it comes into play, you get to use the Tidehuller Sculler ability and look at your opponent's hand, take a non-creature, non-land card out of it. And essentially what that allows the deck to do is play kind of like an aggressive, disruptive game plan, where a lot of your cards are either very aggressively slanted or disrupt your opponent in some way.
Right, and that's the interesting thing this deck has now is these human decks have existed for a while, and these 5-color Ancient Ziggurat decks have existed for a while
Right.
not being all humans. And now we've got this package where you're not caring about collected company at all.
Yeah.
You're an Ether Vial, low-to-the-ground aggressive deck that has a bunch of disruption.
Yes, a bunch of disruption, low to the ground, no collected companies. People actually expect you to have collected companies out of this deck. I played on camera around 5, and my opponent played a Grafdigger's Cage, both games 2 and 3.
Does nothing.
Does nothing. Yeah. The other interesting thing to note about this deck is that it's mono creatures and Aether Vial. There's no Path to Exiles, no other spells of any kind.
Yeah, you're not messing around. You're not acting like you're going to be interacting with people.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Freebooter and Meddling Mage.
You do have a lot of interaction. You're playing Reflector Mages in the main deck. You're playing Freebooters. The other card that is probably worth talking a lot about is Meddling Mage.
Yeah.
I'm running 4 main deck copies of Meddling Mage. They combo really well with the Freebooters and the Reflector Mage. If you can Reflector Mage something and then they can't play the next turn, then you have a window in which you can resolve a Meddling Mage and just lock it out. A lot of the time you're kind of in the dark with Meddling Mage, so that card can be really, really tough to kind of figure out what to name. I even, on camera I made a mistake in what I think that in hindsight, I got punished, but even without getting punished, I think that I named in the blind like a Arcbound Ravager against Affinity, but I think it's probably more accurate to try to name the removal spells that they have, so that you're just kind of guaranteed to have that guy stick around, and it'll in a certain way protect your other guys if you name their removal spells.
And there's the interaction between you have Freebooter and Reflector Mage, as you mentioned, to kind of set up Meddling Mage, but you can also just use your knowledge of the Modern format, understand what each deck is going to present, and shut it down.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So we also have to mention, sorry to cut you off, we have Unclaimed Territory here from Ixalan as well to go along with Cavern and Ancient Ziggurat. So your whole deck is not messing around.
Right, the mana base is definitely a big thing to talk about, and part of the reason why we're not playing any spells is that we're leaning so heavily on Ancient Ziggurat, Cavern of Souls, and Unclaimed Territory, naming humans on the caverns and the territories.
We have Cedric and Patrick going a little bingo crazy, but we'll power through.
They're having fun. No, it's good. So that's kind of why we're not playing any Path to Exiles or anything like that, just because so often you're only drawing the lands that can only tap for creature spells.
Yeah.
And kind of the remainder of the mana base is kind of made up of fetch lands and shocks, and I've got some Rising Canopies in there as well, just for a little extra value. The earlier iterations of this deck, we're actually running Reflecting Pool, which is pretty powerful when combined with one of your
12
Rainbow lands, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I noticed is that if you've got at least one of those Rainbow lands in play, then that's kind of all you need for the most part. And if you and drawing only Reflecting Pools is just
some percentage of draws are just
Unplayable,
going
yeah.
to have that, and then
Right.
you play that hand.
Yeah. So I ended up cutting those, and I've been very happy with where I've landed
All right,
on that.
so we'll go over the rest of the deck here. We've got the usual human suspects you see in this
Yeah.
deck. Noble Hierarch, Champion of the Parish, Mayor Averbrook, Thalia, her lieutenant, the other Thalia. You've got all the Thalias covered here.
Yes,
As
yeah.
well as Reflector Mage and Mantis Rider, somehow a human, I'm not sure, but I guess it's the rider of the Mantis.
It's a human on a mantis. You
Yeah.
know, what more can you want?
So is there any creatures that didn't make the cut in the main deck that you wish you had room for? There's a lot of humans.
There are a lot of humans. I actually, took the time to see if I could go through all the modern humans, but didn't quite make it. I looked at a couple of options. I think that we've got all of the disruptive elements that I want in the Thalia herself, Meddling Mage, and Freebooter, and the bigger Thalia does a pretty good job of that as well. There were some other cards that I could have played that would maybe make the deck more aggressive, but I think that the deck does a pretty good job on its own of being able to put pressure on. Like there's a red 3/1 for 3 that deals damage to your opponent equal to the number of creatures you've got in play, which I considered playing, but just didn't really. It felt like it's kind of doing more of what the deck's already good at, which is having an aggressive.
You're already
beatdown plan.
dealing a lot of damage.
Right. Another consideration that we thought about was the artifact construct, where you can name human, and every human that you play after that gets a +1/+1 counter.
Metallic Mimic?
Yeah. And I considered playing that over Meddling Mage, but I figured that my read for the current metagame is that Meddling Mage is pretty good right now.
Yeah, I would imagine Mage is very good against Storm and things like that.
Yes, Storm is definitely, there are some main deck configurations where if you name Grape Shot, then they kind of have a hard time keeping up or doing anything really.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the sideboard here where we have a bunch more humans. Go
Yes.
figure.
Sideboard
across,
is 15 humans.
Yeah, just nothing but humans in this deck. Aether Vial,
absolutely.
lands, and humans.
Yep.
So we'll start off some of the ones we see in the human company decks that often splash black, have the Zathru Necromancer and Anaphinza the Foremost. Do you have these in your sideboard?
Yep.
Necromancer, just a great grind
So
engine.
yeah, they're probably the worst matchup for you are the blue-white control decks, and also Jeskai tempo control is kind of rough sometimes. So you just really want something that you can. It's really good to vial it in response to a sweeper, and then you can typically kill your opponent from there, or just having it in play and maybe responding to a removal spell or something like that. Just kind of to get that extra value and keep them off balance a little bit.
Sure.
And Tireless Tracker is kind of the other card that fits in that slot of just another card that helps me grind.
Just pile these cards in against the Snapcaster Mage decks.
Yeah.
Try to outlive them.
Right.
Beat them down with whatever you got left.
Ideally, your disruptive elements are kind of, keeping them off balance, and then you can tempo them out from there. But, realistically, that's not going to happen every time, so you want to have a backup plan.
Okay, then we've got Fiend Hunters as your removal of choice.
Yes.
Still a human creature.
Yep.
We've got Canonist, which I imagine is great against Storm and the like.
Yep.
And Mirran Crusader. Obviously, when Shadow was the big number one deck in the format, people were shifting to a bunch of these in their main deck.
Right.
Just a utility card here
We've
for
seen
that
Shadow
matchup.
kind of on the decline a little bit. We might see Resurgence again, but I've decided to just have the one Mirran Crusader, and I'm pretty happy with that right now.
Okay. Is it Staticaster? Nightmare of many decks.
Oh yeah.
Elves, Infect.
Yeah.
Affinity.
A lot of matchups that are really bad for me is that Staticaster really shines in, like Affinity and Infect and Elves are all kind of decks that can get under me and apply a lot of pressure. And in those matchups, I really want some pretty solid bullets, and I think that Staticaster is perfect for that slot.
Then we've got Vithian Renegades, which a name I'm not used to saying in
Vithian
Modern.
Renegade, oh yeah.
But the effect we all have come to acknowledge has been on many cards for 3 mana. Here, it has the type line human, so it's fitting into your deck.
He's a dude, he comes into play, he destroys an artifact. Yep, that's exactly, you just kind of need an effect like that. It's really good against Affinity. It's very necessary to be able to have any shot at beating Lantern Control. So yeah, he's just, you're going to need artifact removal in your sideboard if you're playing Modern. So, he's a human, and he's the biggest human that destroys something like that.
Well, you're off to a 6-0 start.
Yeah, 6-0 so far.
What have you played so far, and how are you feeling about the deck?
Feeling good. I can't complain too much. I've played against Elves, Affinity, Burn just now, and another deck that I've forgotten. It all kind
Sure.
of blends in. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I beat some matchups that I expected to be tough. I was a little afraid that maybe this was a little too crazy, but it's doing well for me so far. So.
It's modern. You can do what you want. And if you've got your deck built properly, you should be able to navigate some games.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, this deck looks awesome. We'll hope to get you on camera a little more. Collins, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Cincinnati.
All right.